while I was in jail. I didn't get my medicine for days. People were saying, he's a scum of scum. He should be deported. He should go to El Salvador. We should burn him alive.
An exclusive interview with an Indian-American man falsely accused of kidnapping a toddler. Mahendra Patel shares his agonizing experience after charges are dropped. That's coming up. From Washington, D.C., I'm Allister. This is Washington Watch, a weekly roundup of the biggest stories from the United States and beyond the headlines. The chair of the U.S. Central Bank seems to be opening the door to a rate cut next month. Jerome Powell says shifting economic risks are strengthening the case for a cut as the labor market cools and Trump's tariffs drive inflation higher. Powell's comments come as Trump launches a fierce campaign on the Fed, insisting on large interest rate cuts. The European Union's chief diplomat says Ukraine should not be pressured into giving up territory to Russia. Kaja Kallas told the BBC that such suggestions are a trap and Moscow has yet to make a single concession. On Thursday, Ukraine saw one of its biggest airstrikes by Russia. Meanwhile, Russia says no meeting will happen with Zelensky unless an agenda is agreed upon. Prime Minister Netanyahu says Israel is ready to talk with Hamas to pause fighting and free hostages, but at the same time, Netanyahu has approved Israeli troops pushing deeper into Gaza City. The White House has been discussing a ceasefire plan, one Hamas accepted. Israel, though, has rejected the deal on the table. The FBI has searched the Maryland home of John Bolton, President Trump's former national security advisor. It's part of a classified information probe tied to Bolton's 2020 book, where he talked about his time in office under Trump. The Trump administration tried but failed to block the book's release. Bolton, once a White House insider, is now one of Trump's sharpest critics.
Net impact on the Americans because of our trade with India. Well, let's think about it. They have higher tariffs, there are Maharaja tariffs, higher non-tariff barriers. We run a massive trade deficit with them, so that hurts American workers, hurts American business.
Calling India the Maharaja of tariffs, U.S. President Donald Trump's trade advisor Peter Navarro has accused India of running a profiteering scheme by continuing to import Russian oil. Navarro expects punitive tariffs of 50% on Indian imports to take effect as planned next week. And this, just coming in the last few minutes, an hour or so, Fed Chair Jay Powell hinted at a possible rate cut next month. Speaking in Jackson Hole, the head of the U.S. Central Bank pointed to a cooling labor market and rising inflation. Powell called that mix unusual and said it could push the Fed to act to support growth. He also noted tariffs are still adding costs, but suggested that the impact may be short-lived. The comments come at a crucial moment, remember, for the Fed as the Trump administration launches a fierce campaign against Powell and other Fed officials, insisting the central bank should make drastic rate cuts. In other news now, an Indian-American man is demanding an apology from law enforcement in Georgia after having spent nearly 2 months in jail. Mahendra Patel was accused of kidnapping a 2-year-old in Walmart in March. However, those charges have now been dropped after surveillance video of the incident was obtained. The footage shows Patel interacting briefly with a woman on a mobility scooter. The woman claimed Patel tried to grab her 2-year-old son. Patel says he was merely trying to help the child from falling off the scooter. Moments later, a similar incident, but now a Walmart employee is seen trying to help as the child slides off the scooter. However, sometime later, as Patel is seen leaving the store, the woman decided to lodge a complaint against Patel, saying he tried to snatch her son. NDTV spoke exclusively to Patel, but first, here's the 911 call the woman made to police.
911, what's the location of your emergency?
Hi, I am at the Walmart.
Someone tried to snatch your baby?
Yes.
Was he
Indian
white?
man, ma'am.
Indian man?
Yes.
This just occurred, correct?
Probably not, 30 minutes ago, I thought. I'm sorry. I would have called sooner, but I got my baby back.
Mr. Patel, can't imagine what a harrowing experience this must have been for you. You were accused of kidnapping a child. The charges have been dropped. Tell us what happened in the middle of March after you entered a Walmart in the state of Georgia.
I went to Walmart to get a specific type of Tylenol, rapid release, for my mom, who lives with us. She's 86 years old, has a severe osteoarthritis. And I couldn't find a Tylenol after looking around. So I saw a lady in a handicap scooter, what they call motorized scooter. I asked her, she expressed willingness to help. And I realized she must be handicapped. She had 2 kids with her. And she started showing me. And when she turned, I instantly realized instinctively that kid is going to fall. So I hold the kid for a brief second. And when she took a control of it, I let it go. And I thank her. And I said, I'll find somebody else to get a Tylenol, and moved on.
Okay, so you found the Tylenol medication, and as you were headed to the cash counter, you saw the same woman again, and I understand that she calmly gave you a thumbs up. Is that correct?
Yeah, she gives me thumbs up, and we never had an argument. We never talked about loudly. There was another employee next to where this incident happened. If he realized there was some problem, he could have jumped in. I go to checkout lane, paid using my credit card, and on the way out, I talked briefly with the greeter and walked out. Never thought twice about it. I think I spent more than 8 minutes there.
You spent 47 days in jail. What was that like?
People wanted to attack me. People said, hey, old man, if I take you in a shower and beat you up, what would you do? Another guy said, give me $500,000, I'll provide a protection in a jail. Some people say, what are you going to do? Are you going to chop up the kids and eat it up? Another guy said, if you ever get out of the jail, I'll take care of you outside. I lost 17 pounds while I was in jail. I didn't get my medicine for days. I'm a vegetarian. Such a hard time getting any meal. I literally lived on a bread and peanut butter and a milk. While I was inside, my family was going through. So on the social media, people were saying, he's a scum of scum. He should be deported. He should go to El Salvador. We should burn him alive.
Tell us about how the CCTV footage helped you get out. What did the video reveal?
You will see that she is turning. She clipped that corner, and kids were almost falling, and it was like 2-3 seconds of interaction, and then you see in a whole grainy video that I'm walking calmly, passing her almost 3 times without any problem at all.
Okay, Mr. Patel, now what? Are you planning to sue the police and the district attorney's office?
No, I demanded, and I will demand on your show as well, that they publicly apologize and also state what concrete steps they're going to take in order for them to change their procedure, policies to prevent a next innocent person from getting apprehended. And I want to see that. I would like to see that. At this point, we are not thinking about anything else. That's what we are waiting for them to do.
That exclusive interview there with NDTV. Moving on now, uncertainty growing over US President Trump's push for peace between Ukraine and Russia. Moscow's latest statement suggesting Russia is stepping back from accepting any Western security guarantees, something that appeared to be agreeable when Trump and Putin met in Alaska. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky, along with European leaders, met Trump in Washington this week. The Europeans and Trump talked about security guarantees for Kyiv, which would involve sending troops into a post-war Ukraine. The US has ruled out sending any American soldiers, but there's talk of aerial support. But now Russia, though, says any foreign troops in Ukraine would be unacceptable. Meanwhile, President Zelensky said there was no sign that Moscow wanted any sort of talks after Russia carried out one of its biggest strikes on Ukraine Thursday. Russia's foreign minister has said no meeting between Putin and Zelensky will happen until an agenda is agreed upon. Let's take a closer look at this story now. We're joined by former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. Thank you very much, Ambassador Taylor, for your time here. Ambassador Taylor, it's been really a dizzying 7 days. First, the Alaska summit with Putin, then the Europeans meeting with Trump. But looks like things have stalled again because Moscow's massive attack on Ukraine on Thursday. Now, Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov saying no meeting until an agenda is agreed upon. Where are we at? Back to square one?
Well, Allister, first of all, no surprises there coming out of Moscow. All the things you just said. I mean, the continued bombardment, brutal, cruel, barbaric bombardment of Ukraine continues at incredible levels. And you continue to see what we have seen over and over and over from Russia stall. It is very clear that the Russians do not want to end this war. It is very clear they don't want a ceasefire. It's very clear they don't want to end the war with an agreement. It's very clear they don't want to sit down to talk with President Zelensky. It's not even clear they want to sit down and talk with President Trump. They want to stall because the Russians think that they can continue to bombard the Ukrainians until they give up. And that's futile, Allister. That is futile. The Ukrainians will not give up. Europeans, you referenced them, they're not giving up. The Americans have a recommitment. I'm very pleased that President Trump on Monday, not last Friday, but on Monday was very positive, constructive. He talked about security guarantees that the Americans would participate in. He talked about he listened to the Ukrainians and the other Europeans when they talked about ceasefire, which he had essentially given up on in Anchorage. Even though going into Anchorage, he had been full bore, guns ablazing for a ceasefire. When he sat down with President Putin, something changed. But Europeans and including the Ukrainians may have gotten him back on track on Monday on a ceasefire. So while I agree that the Anchorage discussion was disheartening, and I agree that there's no change in the Russian attitude, continuing to bomb and continue to stall, there seems to be some positive movement on the Ukrainian, European, American side on security guarantees. And one last thing, Allister, let me just say, it doesn't matter a bit what Lavrov says about security guarantees. Yeah, of course they're not going to agree. The whole point of a security guarantee is to deter the Russians from attacking again. Of course they're not going to agree. Why would we even ask if they want to agree? Right. We shouldn't even ask that question. No, the security guarantee is moving forward and there's planning going on, and that's the right thing.
Right, Ambassador Taylor, the EU's chief diplomat has said that Ukraine should not give up territory. It's a trap. Putin has said that the fight would stop if Ukraine gives up what it controls of the Donbass region. That's a climb down from Putin's earlier demands of wanting 4 regions. Would ceding the Donbass really ensure peace, though?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is ludicrous for Putin to ask the Ukrainians to give up territory that the Ukrainians have been defending successfully since 2014. Since 2014, the Ukrainians have been defending that area, that exact area that Putin wants the Ukrainians just to give up, just voluntarily hand it over. That is strategic area. That's strategic heights. That's a well-defended, well-prepared, defensively prepared area that has kept the Russians at bay for, well, I keep track, just on this one, 1,276 days, but really going back to 2014, the Russians have tried to take that, and the Ukrainians have been defending it courageously and effectively, and they're not going to give it up. And it's ludicrous for Putin to ask them to give it up. No, I think the Europeans are exactly right.
Ambassador Taylor, one way the US can really arm twist Putin into peace is sanctions. We know of tariffs on Russian oil, on India, yet unfairly countries like China and Turkey are untouched. What's going to really make Putin bend? Because a red carpet welcome in Alaska seems to have really gone nowhere.
I'm glad it went nowhere, actually. But you're right. Sanctions matter. My view is, Allister, that when President Trump put those secondary tariffs on India, on exports of Indian goods to the United States, because India buys so much Russian oil, when that happened, I know it's painful. We can come back and talk about that. And you make the point that it's inconsistent because he didn't do it on other nations. All true. But when Trump did that, Putin spooked. Putin panicked. Putin got very worried that maybe President Trump is serious about putting tariffs on people who buy my oil. And if people like India, like China, the two biggest purchasers of Russian oil, if they don't buy my oil, Putin said to himself, I'm in trouble. I'm in deep trouble. I can't fund my war with Ukraine. I'm in trouble. So, he said, I need to get together with Trump. I need to try to convince him that I'm really a partner for peace, and I'm really willing to have a conversation about ending this war. Because not he was interested in peace or ending the war, no, because he wanted to avoid the secondary tariffs that Trump already showed he's willing to do by putting them on India. So Putin got what he wanted. He got what he wanted. He got his meeting, got his picture taken. But more importantly to him, he diverted, he delayed further secondary tariffs or other sanctions. I mean, there are other sanctions that Trump has in his pocket that could do the same kind of damage to the Russian economy, in particular oil revenues, that he hasn't done yet, that Trump hasn't put on yet. But he can do that, and Putin knows that.
Right. William Taylor, thank you so much for your time here on Washington Watch. To our next story, are you of moral character? Have you had too many traffic violations or not paid child support? The Trump administration will be closely looking into that when granting U.S. citizenship. Here's what you really need to know. Evaluating an applicant's moral character now is not new. It's just that there will now be even greater emphasis on it. No longer is just absence of misconduct enough. So what will officers really be looking at? Well, things like community service, say, with a charity, other things like achievements, financial stability. On the other hand, though, things like gambling or drug-related violations or too many traffic tickets, not paying your taxes as well, could mean a rejection. Now, critics say the guidelines are vague and are merely a ploy to limit legal immigration. Protests in Washington, D.C. as President Trump's emergency order on crime keeps the capital under heavy federal control. But for local D.C. leaders, the spectacle is seen as a takeover, with critics calling it an occupation rather than a true commitment to law and order. Ridhima Kadia has the details.
We will continue to stick up for our neighbors! Free D.C.
The streets of Washington echo with anger. Protesters chanting "Free DC," facing off against troops, armored vehicles, and federal agents.
The idea that he's targeting us and persecuting us feels wrong to me. Well, that I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss, the neighbors.
And just steps away at Union Station, a very different scene. Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and White House advisor Stephen Miller flipping burgers for National Guard troops, booed by nearby crowds.
We have workers and everyday people terrified to go to work around Washington, D.C. We have communities showing up for their neighbors. The power is in the people, and that is why Hegseth and J.D. Vance are here today, because they're afraid.
Have a good time, fellas.
President Trump himself has gone further, hand-delivering hamburgers and pizzas to troops at a Park Police Operations Center, carrying a microphone, thanking officers for their work, and cracking jokes about joining them on patrol.
Going to be removed.
Since 11th of August, when Trump declared a crime emergency and seized control of Washington's police, nearly 2,000 National Guard troops have been deployed, many imported from Republican-led states. Alongside them, federal officers from the FBI, DEA, ICE, and more.
They also had a life before they became homeless, Everybody got to have a heart for somebody. Some nowadays, definitely homeless. I feel safe walking through the city each and every day. I feel safe, so we don't need troops in the city.
Downtown DC now looks like a militarized zone. Armored vehicles on Constitution Avenue. Agents manning metro shops. Helicopters overhead. But here's the contradiction. Local officials say crime is already falling. Violent crime is down 26% this year. Robbery is down double digits. Trump called those statistics phony numbers, claims that are now under Justice Department's review. At the same time, the administration is touting its own matrix. Attorney General Pam Bondi says 630 arrests, 86 illegal guns seized, and dozens of homeless encampments cleared. For the mayor, the challenge is existential, pushing back against a federal takeover. The White House calls it restoring order.
Free DC!
Protesters call it an occupation. And as Vice President Vance declares, we brought some law and order back. The chants on the streets of Free DC are only growing louder. With Rhythm Arcadia, Bureau Report, NDTV World.
At a time when the Trump administration is clamping down on homeless camps in D.C., 50 minutes away in Virginia is an Indian woman helping the less fortunate. For the past 4 years, she's been running a community kitchen. It all began when she sold her successful IT staffing business, trading the C-suite for the pantry.
Forget multi-millionaire, I'm not even a millionaire. I'm Nupur Punjabi. I sold my IT staffing business to start a non-profit kitchen here in Virginia, US. The name of the kitchen, Anna Sudha. Anna means food and Sudha means nectar of love. So the mission is to spread love through food. So I was busy running a IT staffing business. I grew it from scratch. When I lost my mother and then COVID hit, pretty much my self-discovery process started. That's when this idea of starting a non-profit kitchen came about. I sold my IT staffing business. People may perceive me as somebody who had a lot of money, who didn't have to worry about anything, and so it was easy to start this, but it's definitely not like that. I just want to say I'm not a millionaire. So homelessness is a reality here in the US. We are donating 6,500 meals a month to different shelters. The Indian community always wants to donate vegetarian food. Every day feeding them vegetarian food doesn't make sense. So what we donate is comfort food like pasta, noodles, and then we just add cooked and frozen chicken on top. Folks love chickpeas, butter chicken, and samosas.
This is one of my favorite Indian foods. I live under a bridge in a tent. This place has helped me to survive over the last few months. You know, they served all different dishes, but I love the dishes from India.
We have today a team of 300 volunteers. So it's just become a whole volunteer movement.
Truly so gratifying to be able to work with different people and all come together for a community cause.
When we go to shelters to drop off food, they know they're expecting our food.
I didn't really know a lot, but they taught me how to do dosas and the uttapams and masala dosas.
So one of the fundraiser we do is our summer cooking camp to make this kitchen sustainable, where parents pay for their kids' classes, then they come here cook. Like these are one of the glimpses from the cooking camp of the kids. Yeah.
After running this kitchen for 4 years, I feel a sense of deep personal satisfaction. The kitchen is my happy place.